Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. Sorry we weren't together yesterday. We had some important planning meetings in the morning, but we are back today. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, and we get together most weekday mornings, 8 o'clock Central, to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and support each of you. We have a 3-point agenda today. We want to make sure that everyone's open for business. There are some important state director updates that came from yesterday's meeting, and then we're going to talk about some best practices. At any point, if you have questions, comments, concerns, feel free to type those into the Q&A. It's like a chat box of Zoom. I did mention Monday that we were not having a training yesterday on Tuesday, but some of you, I don't think, picked that up, so I apologize, but we did mention that at the close of Monday's Zoom. All right, so first of all, what is it we do? We work business paralegals different than 509 Pacific, and we clarified that on Monday's training. If you missed Monday's training, you can go back and see it as well as all others. So two organizations. 509 Pacific is a 501c3 nonprofit, administers a grant, helps small businesses get a shelf corp, get a minimum of 100,000 to start or grow. And then we have resellers, which are kind of our outreach team. There's no cost to be a reseller, no contract to sign. If you want to become a reseller, we use the term grant coordinator interchangeably. But if you want to become a reseller / grant coordinator, you can go to the nonprofit's website, which is not what I'm showing you, and you'll be able to very easily get set up. Again, no cost, no contract to sign. What'll happen is we will send you an implementation email, and it'll come from support@guaranteedfunding.org. That implementation email will have some attachments, the most important of which is an editable client agreement. So that way you can remove our information, put yours on, change pricing as you want, and then you're open for business. That was a very Cliff Notes version, but we've covered that in detail in prior trainings. Does anyone need help with this before we move forward with other agenda items? Anyone need help getting open for business as a reseller? Okay, good. I think we're all on track there. Number 2 is a big deal, so let's go ahead and add some content. Important state director updates. So as I mentioned, we're growing, and that's all good. So we have lots of resellers. We're pushing close to 500 resellers now. Frankly, too many for us to support. So we made a decision to have a director of each state. And we're still looking for state directors. So if you're interested, let us know. And we could plug you in. So the state director doesn't pay anything. It's not a franchise, not an MLM, but state directors train and support and oversee and build out the team of resellers in their state. So no change there. Just let us know if you're interested in a leadership position. But what are some important updates? So they decided to provide a car allowance for each state director. What we found is those of you that are on board as state directors are saying, hey, look, I'm traveling around, that you're traveling around the state. You know, if you're in New Hampshire, there's not much travel. If you're in California, there's a lot of travel. So the bottom line is we're going to have a car allowance to cover the cost of your vehicle and travel if you're a state director. So that's a nice perk. The other is a little bit more complicated. So we're going to have separate accounting for each state director. So each state director is getting paid off of the front end. They get paid $5,000 for each shelf corp sale in their state, which we've talked about before. If you're not familiar with that, you can go back to past training, so no change there. And then they're also paid 5 points of the client's capital raise. So at our board meeting yesterday, they wanted us to handle this a little differently. So what does this mean? And it's important. Each state, well, let's word it differently. There's going to be different bank accounts. Let's just make it simple. So we're going to have a P&L on each state that the state director is running. And so we're going to keep it separate all the way from the bank account downwards. So we are going to have a different bank account assigned. So we have 50, the short is we have 50 new bank accounts we opened yesterday. You know, who wants that? But anyway, we have 50 new bank accounts. One is assigned to each state, and then we're measuring the P&L of each state director. So before you wire any money in, you'll need to get with us or get with Madison over at the nonprofit, because as of today, there are 50 different bank accounts, and we need to keep all the money separate for each state because we're essentially going to be launching a profit share with the state directors. So what's the important point? Set aside whatever you had for banking information for us. That will change as of today. We can get you the new one, but not everyone's going to have the same one. We're actually working with different banks in different states, so it's a bit complicated, but the bottom line is we're taking the state director role very, very seriously. So if you're not a state director and you're interested, be sure to let us know. Candace is asking, well, what does it take to be a state director? Well, the first thing to qualify as a state, it doesn't cost money, right? We're not selling you an opportunity, but you need to prove that you can perform. I was talking to one of our resellers in Chicago yesterday, and he said he wants to be the state director of Illinois. I said, great, how's your performance? Well, I haven't tried, he says. Well, that's not good, right? I mean, you need to try and you need to show that you can perform before we give you a company car, before we set everything up and do profit sharing with you. So it's a great deal, but obviously for our state directors, we need people that are able to perform. So first step before you really say, hey, I want to be a state director, is look at your performance for last month, March, and were you average? The average reseller does a deal a day because it's a part-time gig for them. They're not doing it full-time. So a deal a day, around 20 a month. If you're not even at least average, it's rather ambitious for you to come to us and say, hey, I want to run the whole state. I want a company car. I want a budget. I want to do profit sharing. That's really not reasonable. So do we have to wait until the end of April? No, I mean, show us early in the month that you can perform. And if that's the case, then we can roll forward. All right, I think those are the important state director updates. Again, if you're interested, you can call us. Our phone number is on the website. Our phone number is here. So this is the businessparalegals.com website. This is my new email, which we rolled out. When the new investors came in, they wanted to do some things differently. So they're taking the state director role very seriously. They have us all with unique emails, so we're not using those aggregate emails like support at or office at. All right, any questions on the state directors before we get to our main topic, which is best practices? Tasha asked how to get open for business. So you'll go to 509 Pacific, Tasha, right here, and you can sign up to be a grant coordinator, which is the same as being a reseller. It's right here, Tasha. Do you see that? Tasha, do you see that? Any questions on that? Sorry if that wasn't clear before, Tasha. Okay, so Michael says he wants to be a state director. Great, great. Yeah, so we're looking for strong leaders. Doesn't cost you anything. It's all positive, but you need to show that you're good. And I know you're good, Michael. So, Michael, how many enrollments did you have? How many Shelf Corps did you sell in March, Michael? If you can respond. All right. Well, while we're waiting for Michael to respond, let's go into best practices. Reseller best practices. All right. So first of all, it's obviously be active. There are lots of people in our world that want to dabble, and we really don't need dabblers. If you're not going to be average or try to be average, frankly, maybe you should go do something different, because I tell you what, our state directors, they're going to be there to hold you and support you and love you, but we need production, right? We have this wonderful grant to go give away shelf corps, because if you remember, we're giving these shelf corps away. Now, we discussed all that on yesterday's training, which you can, or Monday's training, But the grant to give away shelf corps, it's a big deal. And if you're not going to be active in educating and getting shelf corps out into entrepreneurs' hands, there's really no reason. So number one is be active, and it's not complicated, and it's like anything. Remember the first time you rode a bike? Were you an expert the first time you hopped up and tried to balance and pedal? Of course not. You get better the more you do it. Entrepreneurs are action oriented. Entrepreneurs don't need to wait to be told to do something. That's what workers need. So number one is to be active. The second of which is to be honest. Be honest. We do not have to lie or exaggerate or make the shelf corporations seem too good to be true. They're an outstanding package to help any small business owner access at least 100,000 to start or grow a business. And we need to be honest. I'll give you another side story. So yesterday evening, I heard from one of our resellers, and he's a reseller that tells me he's really going to be a big deal, which is fine. I'm sure he will be. Hope he will be. And then he had submitted in a client, and his client didn't get any offers for first tranche financing. So that's that first round of funding to pay you, the reseller, for the shelf corp. And she has a pretty good credit score, but she didn't get any cash offers from us. And his response was, that's illegal. They have to give her money because she has a better than 700 credit score. And I agree, it's unusual for someone that has a 700 credit score to not get approved. But part of being honest is don't say things that you really don't know. You separate opinions from fact. And so let's even add that. Separate opinions from facts, because everyone has opinions, but we don't want to share with clients or others what we portray to be true if it's not true. Now, the issue with that client, we did a soft pull on her credit with her permission, and we were able to identify very logically why she didn't get funding. So it made sense, because funding for that first tranche, the first round to pay you for the shelf corp, it's primarily driven by the individual's credit, personal credit, and personal income, because they don't have a fundable business yet. Then once they pay you for the shelf corp, now we have a fundable business, then we can go do business funding. But it's very rare that lenders, probably never, it's more than rare, it's probably never do they just say, oh, the credit score is fine, give them money. They're going to look at the credit profile. And so there can be issues where the person's credit profile, even though their score is okay. But let's go ahead and I see Doug's asking a question, so let's clarify. So there are two tranches of funding in our model. The first is what we call the first tranche. That is where the client borrows money to pay you for shelf. So that's the upfront money. So clients don't have any out-of-pocket costs to buy a shelf corp unless you're making it that way as a reseller. They contract with you, and then you upload the contract to us, and then we're going to send them a funding app. We'll copy you. They'll fill out the funding app, and we're looking for the first tranche. And we have great success stories. Like yesterday, let's take Sherman, for example, real client. Sherman has already received a $30K first tranche, a $20K, and there's more pending. So, every once in a while you have someone says, well, no one gets funded. Well, you have to be fundable to get funded, but to say no one gets funded is ridiculous. Lenders loan money, but they loan money to qualified applicants. So the first tranche is designed to get you the money to pay you for the shelf corp at whatever price that you put it at. So we have lots of cases where people get a lot more than they need for just the shelf, so it gives them working capital. And then the most important tranche is what we'll call the second tranche. And so this is the business funding. So using the shelf corp. So of course, once a client has paid for the shelf corp from you, we need about 7 days to transfer it over. Then we can start using it. It's like any asset. Think of a couch Oh, I'd love to have a really nice couch to watch a movie on tonight. Well, the way the world works is you buy the couch and then it's your asset and then you can use it. And you could either pay for the couch out of pocket or you could finance it. But the bottom line is the ownership needs to transfer. Same with the shelf court, because people will come to us and say, well, why don't we just skip step one and let's just get everyone funding from the shelf corp initially? Well, it's not their asset yet. It's not their asset. They need to buy the asset from you, the reseller, then we can use it. So Doug, did that make sense of what you wanted to hear there? Or need to know? Okay, so going back to this. So we need to be professional. So I guess we'll even add that, and that kind of goes. So what are some things that would make you look professional? How you answer, and I feel ridiculous lecturing you on this, so forgive me, but how you answer the phone, how your voicemail is set up, your email. Should you really be out selling people on their dreams of getting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars if you're using a personal email account, if you're using Gmail or Yahoo or AOL or porn.com? I mean, does that really look professional? Now, if that's how we need to get started, that's how we need to get started. But being professional dovetails in with this point here. We want to stop stating things that are untrue. That's obvious. But think before you say, because if you're not sure that it's true, don't tell people things that really is more your opinion. All right, so we got a question from Claude, and that's a good one. So we'll drop down. Claude's asking, who can we work with? Now, that's a complicated question because that could be from a client perspective or from a reseller perspective. So, Claude, are you asking about who we can work with to be clients or who we can work with to be resellers? All right. So, what Claude's getting to is the issue of people with a criminal history. And I'm glad Claude brought this up because this dovetails back into this point here. So let's think for a moment. Let's be analytical about what criminal history means. So if someone runs into a difficult position from a criminal perspective, there are a few different milestones. So first, they may be arrested. But arrested does not mean you could be arrested, I could be arrested. Being arrested doesn't mean that you're guilty. It just means that they think that something has happened. So does someone being arrested make them a criminal? Absolutely not. No. So we need to separate opinions from facts. Is someone a criminal just because they've ever been arrested? No, no. But what happens as the criminal case progresses, if it does? Well, then usually there is an indictment. And I know I've never been indicted. I don't know if you have been or not. Didn't really matter. I'm not here to judge you. So this is a more serious step, right? Because anybody could be arrested even for a wrong reason, for a bad reason. Look at MLK. MLK was, I think, arrested 17 times. So do not judge. So separate opinions from facts. And I guess we'll throw it under this one. Don't judge. Don't judge people. So someone can be arrested and never be indicted. And what that means is the arrest was a mistake or it wasn't warranted. So again, Claude's question is, how does it affect who we work with a criminal history? And what I'm attempting to do is to break it down. And then the third, and this is a Cliff Notes version, is have they been convicted? So we first have to define what Claude's question is. We do not care if someone's been arrested. You could be arrested, I could be arrested. Being arrested is irrelevant because it has no bearing. Now, if there was enough evidence that we were indicted, now it's more serious. Again, I've never been indicted, don't know if you've ever been indicted, doesn't necessarily rule someone out, but we can see there's a big difference between being arrested versus being indicted. Now, being indicted means the grand jury reviewed your file or the person's file and decided that it needs to go to trial. And then convicted means that it has gone to trial and they lost. So in other words, they're guilty. So do not judge anyone for being arrested, because there's lots of people in our society that get arrested unjustly or erroneously. So do not judge people on being arrested, because that's immaterial. People will want to promote it, make a big deal. It's irrelevant. Have they been indicted? Again, I've never been indicted. Don't know if you've been indicted, but that's a more serious step. Now there's enough evidence that shows that some wrongdoing might have happened. But still, in our society, we're innocent until proven guilty. So we're not going to judge anyone just because they've been arrested. Not me, not you, not anyone, because that's irrelevant. Was there an indictment and then convicted? So Claude's question was much simpler. Can we work with people that have been arrested? Of course. Can we work with people that have been indicted or convicted? Well, the short answer is yes. And actually, we formed a subsidiary we've never really launched or implemented, called Felony Capital, to be able to help those that have ran into difficult times get reacclimated and earn income. So, short answer to Claude's question, can we work with criminals as resellers? Yes. Can we work with criminals as clients to get them funding through a shelf corp? Yes. Will it impact their funding? It may. There are some lenders that, I don't think there's a lender in the world that cares if you've been arrested. I don't think so. I don't think there's a lender in the world that cares if you've been indicted. Some lenders will be concerned about the conviction, depending upon the conviction, but we have some lenders that don't care about that. So the short answer to Claude's simple question 5 minutes ago is we can work with anyone, but it's very, very important to separate this out. And don't go around judging people. You hear, oh, someone got arrested, they must be a bad person. What would be the logical question? Well, did they get indicted? And if so, were they convicted? If these two didn't happen, then number one was, quite frankly, a mistake. Claude, is that a good answer? Okay, so we're back to reseller best practices. So we need to be active, or frankly, go find something else to do. Our average reseller, oh, misspelled it, reseller, does a deal a day. So it's a very part-time, one a day, 5 a week, 20 a month. Now there's some days busier than others. So they're bringing in right about 100,000 a month because you're making 5,000. So if you're not committed to being average, I don't know that you're in the right position. I think there's lots of things you could go do to make a lot of money other places, legally and ethically. We need to be honest. And part of that, part of being honest, I think people say, well, sure, you shouldn't lie. But I'm seeing instances where people are not being honest based upon what they're suggesting or confusing opinions with facts. So I'd encourage you not to do that. And then we don't want to be judging people. Okay. So another best practice is you need good lead flow. Because if you follow the money, what you need is clients to pay for a shelf corp. But before you have someone pay for a shelf corp, they need to buy a shelf corp from you, which happens through that process we talked about. And before that, you need a prospect, right? So it's kind of 3 steps. Prospect, lead, prospect, client. Lead, prospect, client. So when I talk to many of you, I said, well, how's your lead flow look? Often the response is, well, what does that mean? So I know I'm in trouble. And then often people will come back and say, well, I've got 2 people that look pretty good. Well, if you've got 1 or 2, if you can count them on one hand, we're not really on track, because we're not going to go out and do 20 a month. We're not going to be average if your total lead flow are a couple names that you can mention. So we need more leads, right? Any business. Can you imagine you and I going and buying a Domino's pizza franchise, and they said, well, hey, Darius, how's your sales? And Darius says, well, I've got 2 people that might buy a pizza tonight. I mean, that's fucking horrible, right? So we need to scale up. How you get leads is a question we often get, but without doubt, I believe the best way is to get referrals of declines. Now, we had a training stretch this out a little bit. We had a training on the YouTube channel. Well, we had a training that's now on the YouTube channel, and I think it was referred to as broker training. It had a blue background. And it's not a new role, don't get confused by that. But the broker concept is going to others in the financial space and having them refer to you their declines. And we went through and showed you how to find them and scripting and everything. So if you need lead flow, could you go develop your leads on your own? And could you go buy leads or sell to your brother-in-law? You can do whatever you want. You're a reseller. But I think the best thing is to get referrals from other people that have applied for funding that have been declined because they're not fundable. What's the number one key? Let's go all the way up to the top. What's the number one rule of what you and I do? You must have a fundable business to get business funding. And when we have angry villagers or people that are unhappy with us, it's typically because they want something that's inconsistent with their current credibility, right? It's like, well, I didn't get funded yet. Well, is your business fundable? We need to make sure it's fundable. The Shelf Corp provides pretty much everything in the box, but there's still a few variables we need to work with the client on once the Shelf Corp is transferred over. So we need good lead flow, getting referrals from others that have applied for funding that have been declined, I believe is absolutely the best. All right. Looks like Gilbert brings up a good point. And if you have any recommendations of what you think some best practices are, go ahead and let me know. But what Gilbert is saying is be accountable. And I think Gilbert's right. Entrepreneurs, they don't make excuses. Like sometimes I'll play music before the Zoom. I didn't today, but sometimes I'll play music. And some of you will come back and say, well, that's pretty shitty music. If your biggest worry is the type of artist that's playing in the background before a Zoom starts, you're not focused, right? We need to be accountable and focused. Instead, I would be spending the few minutes before the Zoom each morning reflecting. How did I do yesterday? Did I help any entrepreneurs? Did I make any money as a reseller? And if not, what do I need to do differently today? We need to, and I guess focused on what matters. So, and maybe those need to be two different items, I guess. Does anyone else have any recommendations? We got a number of all-stars on this morning. Jocelyn, you're generating massive volume. Karen, Lawrence, LJ, from our top producers, what are other best practices that you know or believe to know or feel that we need to share with others? I'm just curious, other than being active, be honest, and part of that means separate opinions from facts, be professional. We need to focus on good lead flow because otherwise we're not going to be successful on any scale. And probably the best way to get lead flow is referrals of declines from others in the space. We need to be accountable for ourselves. We need to stop making excuses. And of course, we need to trust that others will do what they promise to do. But being successful starts with ourselves and what we do. And we need to focus on what matters. All right, let's see. All right, and so Joe's bringing up a good point. So we covered this yesterday's training, and so anytime we have a client, our primary way of client support, we have, I guess, two things. We have a text support line, which we rolled out on Monday's training, and then we schedule. And so when we schedule, each of us that are advisors, there's 7 of us that are advisors, myself and 6 others, all of us have a Calendly link. Mine is 4-week funding. So Joe, for you or anyone else, anyone that has client specific attention they need, what we do is we schedule. And the nice thing about 4-week funding, I'm sorry, Calendly.com, is that it puts it on my calendar, puts it on the other person's calendar, and that way everybody knows when it is. It's surprising. We'll have some people that schedule and then we call them and they don't show up. They're not even there. And so then what we'll do is we'll leave a message, and normally we'll email them, hey, sorry we missed you, please reschedule. But it's interesting how people will schedule calls, they don't show up, and then they complain. But, and then the support line, I need to pull that up for you. I don't remember what that is, but I'll get that for you here in just a second. Who else has questions, comments, concerns that we need to address today? And I'm going to find that support line so I can put it up there for us. I don't remember it by. Anyone else have comments, questions, anything that we need to discuss today? Just a second, and that line will come through, and then I'll put it up there. Okay, so the tech support line is 903-347-8042. So that's not a number that's answered live. It is for texting. Just put a asterisk by it. All right. Pauline's asking who's our state director. We're in the process of getting the state directors together. Troy brought up a great point that we mentioned from yesterday. Another update, very big update, is they have increased the grant to 20,000. Was 50. Thank you, Troy. So in the past, the grant would reimburse your clients for the purchase of the Shelf Corp after they bought it, after they used it for funding, up to 15,000. Now it's up to 20,000. So some of you, I think, are increasing your price point to be able to accomplish that. So that's a big deal. Thank you, Troy. I completely forgot about that. So we are getting the state directors in place. Just keep producing, keep being active. Once we have a state director that's ready to work with you, we'll make those introductions. Until then, operate as we have been. If you're interested in being a state director, the first thing you have to demonstrate is that you can be active. You all can convince me how great you are, but what we really need to do is perform, because why would we put 20, 30, 50, 100 resellers underneath you if you're not a good role model? So it starts with your production. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Appreciate your time, patience. Have a good day. Bye-bye.